Welcome to I Am the End of the Words. Today we are going over a very serious book, a very structured book, a very important book. Today we are talking about Born Standing Up, A Comic's Life by the one, the only Steve Martin. And first thing I have to say is I've always been a fan of Steve Martin. I've always found him absolutely hilarious in pretty much anything he does, even if it's awful. He's the bright spot in it. I don't think there's many things I could pull out that he was awful in, though, or that was awful that he was in. But going into this, I was familiar that he did some stand-up. I have a few of his albums on vinyl, but I never knew his history going into it. I didn't know his history with the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour and the Sonny and Cher show. I cannot remember. That has to be the name of it, right? I can't recall right offhand, but I didn't know. I'm too young to know that until reading this book, actually. But this opens up very early in his life, talking about, basically his childhood, if you will. And then it just glides through like a stream through his life. And it's crazy that the hard work he put in and just the steadfastness and never wanting to give up on what he thought was funny and always seeing something more that he wanted to do, that he knew would be funny to others. He just needed to figure out how to perfect it and do it right. Just a consummate fan of comedy himself. He set out to set new standards, which you could say were lower standards, but his avant-garde style just destroyed. He became the highest, I think it was the highest selling live comedian at the time, the highest selling act. And this book really proves the kind of person he is, because it's one constant feeling the whole way through. There's no feeling of that he was great. He doesn't write of how great he was. He doesn't write of how big he was. It doesn't seem like that. It's the same exact feeling of him writing when he was at a stage in Knott's Berry's farm, than when he was performing at these huge stadiums. It's the same feeling. And I don't think I ever got that in any of these books. Usually when these comedians talk about when they made it huge, there's like a shift in attitude almost. But Steve Martin's attitude never shifted. If anything, he went the opposite way, because he wanted to make people laugh so much, but he also wanted to feel like he was putting in the effort to do it. And at a certain point, he was signed on for so many shows, he talks about it in here, that he was phoning it in almost. He was still enjoying it, but it wasn't bringing him the enjoyment he wanted it to. He talks about stories here when he was just starting to do a stand-up, and he would take crowds out into the street and like get in a cab, take it around the block, come back, and then get in it and leave and not come back. That is amazing. The fact that he came up with so many of these things is unbelievable. When he talks about getting his first record, getting his first record, they didn't think it would work because he was too visual. And it worked more though because people wanted to go see his live show, and the way he skyrocketed to popularity, the way he truly became the guy after, his myriad training that he put himself through. Just a great story all around. I loved this book. I'm a huge fan of stand-up, and I'm more of a Steve Martin fan now than I think I ever was. He doesn't take himself too seriously, nor would you expect Steve Martin to take himself seriously, but it's serious enough that it's not joke. There's definitely seriousness all through the book. He definitely talks about his life in a realistic way, almost to a fault, because he talks about it so realistically that you think you could go and do that right now. But Steve Martin is one of a kind. There may never be another Steve Martin ever again. And I honestly wake up every day and thank the world that Steve Martin is still alive. Because him being in this world makes it a better place, because he is that good of a person and he is that funny of an individual that the world would take a killer hit, no pun intended, at all, if Steve Martin were to not be on this planet anymore. Steve Martin makes this planet better. This book makes this planet better. I give this book a 9 out of 10. I loved this book. Loved this book. I love Steve Martin. If you are not familiar with his stand-up, if you just know him from, I don't know what, Cheaper by the Dozen, that's who you know Steve Martin from? You know, from the Cheaper by the Dozen? Go listen to some of his stand-up and get out of your comedy hipster attitude and truly see the funny in it, because it's there. The funny is there. It's such genuine funny that you can't help but laugh at it. Thank you for writing the book, Steve Martin. Thank you for being alive, Steve Martin. Thank you for doing everything you've done, Steve Martin. And read this book. Anybody. It's that good. Thank you for watching.